Oh, it's so nice to see this finally in 16 by 9. For a long time it was kind of scrunched up in the middle of the screen. So, my name is Stephen Bryce. I'm the writer and director of John Salesman. I also make a little cameo appearance later on in the movie, but that's neither here nor there. I have to kind of make things quick because this whole movie is only 11 and a half minutes long. Basically, this movie is based on a combination of inspirations. One was loosely attempting to do kind of like a demo cart for a Frank Herbert adaptation that I'd hoped to do, but I couldn't get the rights to. And also sort of getting this thing off my chest where in the summer of about 2005, I found myself very briefly employed by a company that was, as it turns out, a pyramid scheme. So this is basically a very stylized psychological twist on a what-if scenario. What if I had burned my bridges with my family and just moved out not realizing what the job was? So this actor is Lino Giraldi playing John Smith. We'll get to the names in a minute. Lino is an incredibly talented actor. I found him as well as our lead actress, Alicia Reagan, on MySpace, and they were both fantastic. This other gentleman I had already known. He is Alex Reynolds, who at the time was the film critic and entertainment reporter for CHTV in Hamilton. I met him while I was interning over there as a co-op student. He was very, very supportive of the movies Colin, BAXTER, and I were making under Mad Twins Films. So when I was developing this movie and I needed somebody to play this father figure, or transposed into a grandfather now, I sort of asked on a whim if Alex would be interested in us making this little appearance, and he not only did so, but he gave us an interesting news story when the movie was completed. He was actually very kind. He called the final movie very innovative, and he just had a blast working with us, and vice versa. Lino, incidentally, is still a very much working actor, and probably his main claim to fame these days is a feature-length rock thriller called Jackie Boy, which you can check out on Tubi if you happen to have it. I very much recommend it. He is absolutely fantastic in that. I'm so proud of you, Lino, if you happen to be listening to this. And finally, our last musketeer, other than me making my cameo, the younger salesman is Keith Withers, who before and after this movie was sort of a stalwart with my movies. And we're about to get into a short little appearance by Colin Baxter, who is the producer and cinematographer on this movie.
Interested. Why not? Because I don't really want people.
This is interestingly the only speaking part he has ever had in any of my movies.
One or two times that I could
And actually did very well. He was certainly very intrigued at getting a chance to tell off the door-to-door salesman. I get the feeling he's probably been saving that up for some time.
You can save money, sir.
Look, miss. I said I'm not
Alicia is definitely a much better actress than I think this movie gives her credit for, because she not only goes to town in scenes like this, but in a sense she's playing two separate characters as the movie goes on.
Now get off my property.
I've always been a little disappointed that I never got to utilize the full extent of her talents. Later on, many years later, I had intended to make her the female lead in what was going to be my second feature film, but sadly didn't come to pass, and I really do mean sadly in regards to Alicia in particular, because we did a screen test with her, and the actor intended to be the lead in that, and honestly, she just blew it out of the water. The really cool thing about Alicia is that she's one of those actors who you don't need to give a lot of direction to, you just need to give clear direction to. It was also really fun being on the other side of the screen test with her, because I also had to act with her while she and this other guy were really tearing things up in this insane comedic scene, and here I was just trying to keep up with them. It was a lot of fun. I'm so sorry that we never got to build on that.
Until coming here, we've never made this much money so fast.
Now, as I said, a lot of this movie is a very heightened version of a what-if scenario if I was not able to leave that crappy pyramid job. But this scene is more or less based on something that really did transpire when I was with this company that I'll be charitable enough not to name. And if anything, this movie sort of lets it off light because they were also very incredibly racist. But she was basically making this point that you have to do everything to make money, and as if that was the be-all and end-all. It's never a philosophy I've agreed with. This camera move, I'm not sure how noticeable it is, but it was just a sort of MacGyver thing. I had this idea of putting the camera tripod on a TV stand and sliding it in this very subtle arc around the couch. Incidentally, this whole basement apartment is actually Colin's basement, or at least it was at the time. This whole shoot was done in a couple of days, and it was probably the least physically demanding movie I've ever done, but interestingly enough, I'm not sure the experience of everybody else involved in it. I found myself mentally exhausted at the end of every day. But that being said, it was a good exhausted because I'm still very proud of this movie. When we got into this nightmare scene, I guess I was a little inspired by Sin City, which was a fairly big movie at the time and still is one of my favorites. I wanted to have some kind of really stark look for the nightmare scene, but I didn't want to overtly rip off Sin City either, so it was a juggling act until I finally just decided to leave it in black and white with as much high contrast as I could, and just let the inherent weirdness of the scene kind of take it from there. This part of the scene is intended to be a little bit like stereotypical David Lynch because you can't see it, but Alicia is actually sitting on burned out remnants of a couch that had been in this area for quite a long time. And sure enough, it had been burned to the ground sometime before we actually got to shooting the scene. I was a little bit bummed out that we didn't get to use it. These puppets, by the way, are made by Jay Graham, who is an art director based out of Toronto. And he's actually done some pretty big budget stuff. He had recently done the mid-2000s version of King Arthur with Jerry Bruckheimer. I've jokingly claimed that I paid him more than Bruckheimer did. I really hope not. And now we transition to Keith's basement at the time, which we just kind of stripped down in this very basic way. I was expecting this scene to be an actual nightmare film for some reason. I'm not totally sure why. I guess I just thought that it was going to need a lot more coverage and more physical intensity on the actors, but when I was shooting this wide shot, The Master, it actually turned out really, really well. And it felt that aside from these close-up inserts and just punching in a little bit for more intense dialogue, it really didn't need that much. And the actors really carried a lot more of this than I need to as a director. I certainly hope that Colin's line here was really lightning in a bottle, because it's just a lamp in the back corner of the room, but boy does it work.
What's the matter, Johnny? Why are you scared? Isn't this what you wanted? An escape from that old dreary
And this is
life
where you can
had?
really see what I mean
The
about
mind flavor?
Alicia having different shades of these characters, because this, even though she represents the same character that we saw on the street earlier, they're really not all alike. Definitely elements of Chinese, water torture and just brainwashing in general. To what extent this is meant to be real, I will leave up to you.
The trouble is, you can only be one of two kinds. If you're a lapdog, then you do as you're told, and you earn your keep. If you're a wolf, then you take what's yours, and leave everyone else to beg for what's left. If you're ignorant,
In case this needs to be said, this is all basically done in one take. There weren't a lot of repeats. Keith doesn't have a lot to do in this movie. Again, he really nails it and just knows how to squeeze a lot out of incidental things. And my last cameo, this is Norma Kimmons as the customer, Colin's mom, and also appeared in my previous movie, Spread Your Wings. I was a little bit intimidated when she found out she had to do some actual acting this time around, but I assured her she had what it took. And that is it. Thank you very much for indulging me.